you. Thank you.
Alright, that way? Yep. To the bus. We're going straight to the bus.
Yeah, I still got.
Yeah, Robert.
We're gonna do one quick Snapchat that'll go on the national story.
All right.
Right outside the bus.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Oh, I have a question for you. So you were here earlier this year?
Oh, we don't have time for long speech out there. You wanna?
Yeah.
Stop.
I think he's got an interview to try to. Oh, gosh.
We're gonna be talking to Steve Scully. He's back in Washington.
All right.
Again?
We have Robert with us somewhere.
Yeah, great. He was a second ago.
Right.
Oh man.
You gotta.
Long stay. How are you? C-SPAN. Senator, how are you?
Come on out.
Hey.
Come on aboard.
All right. Go ahead.
Sophia, come on.
Hi. Shelley Zoo. Yes, you.
Hi, how are you?
Senator Rand Paul making his way on board the C-SPAN bus. We have a moment or two while he gets ready, and so we'll take your calls. Bob from Murfreesboro, Tennessee, you're on the air. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Your thoughts on what you heard from Senator Paul?
Pardon?
Your thoughts about what you just heard a moment ago from Senator Paul?
Yes, I like flat taxes. I sure hope that means no more April 15th, that the companies collect the taxes, and if the government gets their hands on it, it's theirs. If they don't, it's mine.
Bob, thanks for the call. Let's go next to Joshua, joining us from West Covina, California. Good afternoon.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon.
You're on the air.
How are you doing?
Fine, thank you.
I'm just calling to say I just watched the Rand Paul here at Drake, and I really agree with him. I'm a college student myself, and specifically his non-interventionist foreign policy really speaks to me, because I did have a lot of friends that went to Iraq and Afghanistan, and so that sort of like is our generation right there.
Joshua, thanks for the call. By the way, if you live in Iowa, Democrat or Republican, and if you will be attending the caucuses on Monday evening, we want to hear from you as well. That number to call is 202-748-8920. We will also welcome our listeners on C-SPAN Radio, streamed on the web at cspan.org and heard nationwide on XM. Again, the number for Iowa caucus goers is 202-748-8920. Let's go to John, joining us from Wesley Chapel, Florida. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Yes, I only got to think about that. He was talking about the taxes. It's not fair that Obama is taking our taxes if we can't afford insurance. And the Obamacare, like I work 5 days a week, and I still can't even afford the Obamacare. Is he going to be able to do anything with the Obamacare?
Okay, John, thanks for the call. We're getting your comments for a couple of minutes, and joining us shortly, Senator Rand Paul, who is on board the C-SPAN bus. But first, we'll go to Matt, joining us from Darlington, South Carolina. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I was wondering if Rand could speak about the dangers of the polling system that we have, where it seems like the candidates are predetermined winners before we even have any caucuses or primaries.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's determined whoever wins before we even started. Like it would be like college football, a team that's ranked 50th shouldn't even play if they're not in the top 10. And I was just wondering about the dangers of that and the whole system of how they go about polling and the people that they do poll, and,
Sure.
and that he might be shunned out of that because of the system that they use.
Have you ever been surveyed by any news organization, Matt?
No, I never have.
Okay.
And most people don't have landlines now. They use cell phones, and I understand that's basically how they do their polling.
Okay, thanks for the call. Again, a reminder, we'll have live coverage of the caucuses on the C-SPAN networks. C-SPAN 1 will have live coverage of a caucus in northwestern Iowa, and on C-SPAN 2, a chance to watch the caucuses for the Democrats meeting in the greater Des Moines area. There will be more than 1,800 caucus locations around the country, and then a chance to hear from those winners and losers on caucus night, part of our Road to the White House coverage. Senator Paul with us in just a moment, but first, Jacob, Austin, Texas. Go ahead, please.
Hey, how you doing?
Fine, thank you.
All right. Well, I'm calling just to say I am voting for Rand Paul. I voted for Obama in '08, Ron Paul in 2012. The reason I'm supporting Rand Paul is I really believe that you're either heading more towards liberty, more towards tyranny. Now, that may sound extreme, but it just is a fact. You're never standing right in the middle, and I agree that Rand Paul is going to slowly take our nation towards more of a libertarian route and just more towards liberty overall. It doesn't happen in a night, obviously, but I agree with his path to liberty. Thank you.
Jacob, thanks for the call. A reminder, all of our coverage available on our website, live and tape coverage, cspan.org. And joining us from the campaign 2016 bus in Des Moines is Senator Rand Paul. Senator, thanks very much for being with us. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Let me ask you first, you're on the main stage tonight. There's a competing event, Donald Trump across town. Knowing all of that, what is your strategy for this evening's debate on the Fox News channel?
You know, I think it's important for me to get my message out, and also the uniqueness of my message. I think I'm the only fiscal conservative on the stage because I'm the only one that's willing to hold the line on spending across the board, whether it's outrageous and wasteful military spending or whether it's outrageous and wasteful domestic spending. Many of the Republicans, I think, have gone along with Democrats to raise spending because they want higher military spending, but they end up trading with the Democrats and giving them higher domestic spending. And this is why the deficit or the debt actually doubled under George W. Bush and then doubled again under President Obama, because what's happening is the right and left want to continue spending just for different reasons, but they get together and we're currently borrowing $1 million a minute. I think it's a real problem, but I think I'm the only one who consistently has said we have to look at all spending in order to balance the budget.
As you know, we just showed your event live here on the C-SPAN networks, and many of our viewers with questions for you, so thank you for doing that as well. Steve is joining us from Ankeny, Iowa. You're going to go to the caucuses on Monday, Steve?
I certainly am.
And who are you supporting?
I'm going to the caucuses here in Ankeny, Iowa, and I will be supporting Rand Paul.
Why?
You know, I followed his father for probably the last 20 years, and I thought that he was probably by far the best person to help our country, not just in our financial woes, but to preserve our liberties. And I think it's been proven over the past 8 years and perhaps the past 16 that our liberties have been taken from us. I think they might have pushed the overall debt past the point of no return. You know, we might be in a position for the United States that we're going to have to renegotiate our debt or do something with that debt.
We'll get a response. Steve, thanks for the call. Senator Paul?
Well, you know, a lot of our supporters are very concerned about losing our liberties, particularly in a time in which there is fear being promulgated. Terrorists, you know, can't beat us in any kind of pitched battle or any military battle, but terrorists want to cause fear and terror, and we shouldn't let them, you know, cause us to be fearful, and we shouldn't give up our liberties. Our people don't want to have the government collecting all of our phone records or all of our credit card statements. We want to be left alone, and we think that there is a right to privacy that is important. We also don't think that the government programs that have done bulk collection of all our phone records have made us safer or have stopped any terrorist plots. We think that our foreign policy ought to be one in which we defend America, that when we go to war, it's the last resort, not the first resort, that we declare a war when we go to war, and that really we don't get involved with nation building or regime change. Throughout the Middle East, every time we've tried it, some had this naive notion that somehow Thomas Jefferson's going to win the next election over there. But really what we wind up with is chaos, the rise of radical Islam, and things end up being worse than they were before we got involved. So our people want to question our foreign policy and say, you know, really, has the intervention worked? Has it made us safer? Has it made the region more stable? And I think the resounding answer is no, it hasn't, and we need to try a new foreign policy.
We'll go to your home state of Kentucky. Jeremy is on the phone from Columbia, Kentucky, with Senator Paul in Des Moines. Go ahead, Jeremy.
Hi, I just wanted to thank Senator Paul for what he's done for the people and the way he supports liberty and non-interventionism. I think we shouldn't be all over the world fighting for every single thing and destabilizing Middle Eastern countries just so we can come in and swoop up all the profits. I just want to tell him that I really appreciate what he's doing, and we support him here in Columbia.
Well, you know, I appreciate that, and I think that there is a growing consensus. And the interesting thing is that we have people who are Republicans, people who are independents, people who are Democrats who are coming to this message because, frankly, the candidate that is actually most likely to take us back to war in the Middle East is actually Hillary Clinton. So I think Hillary Clinton with the Democrats and Marco Rubio with the Republicans are the most likely to get us back involved in another massive war in the Middle East. And I think there's a growing number of Americans who say, gosh, can't we have a strong national defense, a Reagan-like national defense, but not be so eager to be involved in every civil war around the planet? We have to really think before we get involved, you know, with trying to take out Assad in Syria. If we bomb Assad and get rid of Assad, my fear is that ISIS takes over all of Syria. So I think thinking before we act is incredibly important, and I think there's a growing consensus that are coming to this belief.
Billy is joining us, Salem, Virginia. Good afternoon, Bill.
Hey, good afternoon.
You're on the air. Go ahead, please.
Okay, thank you. What I want to say is I think Rand Paul's the most intelligent and the most articulate about identifying the problems and resolutions. The liberties we've lost, the dulling of the minds of the general public, believing that our federal government's going to save us, and the belief that that a smaller government is the way and the means to getting back on track to a free trade, free economy of supply and demand, and take this mafioso federal government, and whether you're Republican or liberal or Democrat, it's quite clear that there's nothing getting done but stealing and untruths coming out of Washington. And Rand Paul is exploiting that and doing a great job of making people understand. How do you pay off the national debt? You stop spending.
Billy, thanks for the call. Let me take a sentiment and ask you if you thought that you would be at this stage of the campaign, at this level, a few days before the Iowa caucuses, based on the message from the viewers that you're hearing today and the message that you have on the campaign trail.
Well, you know, I guess you never know what to expect. I was just a small-town eye surgeon a couple years ago, never knew whether I'd ever even run for office. I ran for my first office and won, you know, a few years ago for the U.S. Senate. And to me, it's been an amazing journey to be on the national stage, to be part of the national debate, and I'm excited to be part of it. I mean, I am a great fan of our country's history. I'm a huge believer that the founders wanted a government to be very small and wanted our freedom to be very expansive. And so I continue to believe in that vision of the founding fathers that let's keep government restrained. Let's use the Constitution to restrain government. And to me, it's exciting that I'll be on the national stage tonight saying exactly what I believe, that our government should be restrained and constrained by the Constitution.
With the mayor of Lexington, Jim Gray, now likely to challenge you in your Senate bid, there's a story from Politico and also National Journal where some GOP strategists are urging you to not run for president and focus on your own re-election in Kentucky. How do you respond to that?
I always think it's kind of funny when unnamed people tell you what to do, because how are you supposed to respond to unnamed people that tell you what you need to be doing? You know, I've tried very hard to represent and be a good U.S. Senator. I show up for virtually all of my votes. I have a great attendance record. I've given back $2 million of my legislative budget to the taxpayer and to the Treasury. I continue to try to have a loud voice across the nation for Kentucky. I've opposed the president's war on coal and tried to defend our native industries in Kentucky. So I think when it comes time for re-election, Kentucky voters will look at how hard I've tried to protect them from the president's overbearing and overzealous government. And we'll see what happens at that time. But the voters ultimately get to decide, and I'll continue to do my best, continue to show up for my day job, continue to vote in the Senate, and do the best I can for the people in Kentucky.
Let's go to Wanda in Little Rock, Arkansas. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Senator Paul, my question is, I agree with you on not going to war in the Middle East, but I'm concerned about our friends, Israel especially, on how we can help protect them and all our friends over there. But I'm also concerned with them taking American hostages and how we go about getting them back.
Well, you know, I think if you are concerned about the safety and well-being of Israel, we should want a more stable region over there. So I think when we toppled Saddam Hussein in the Iraq War, that actually made Iran more of a threat. It emboldened Iran. Iraq is now aligned with Iran and they're close allies and close allies with Russia. So I think if you think that Israel is our friend and you want to have that good relationship and you want Israel to be safe, I think the first thing you want is stability in that region. I think if we topple Assad, I think things get worse as well. And so I think if we are looking for stability and looking to allow at someday those people there to choose something, a better way of life and a better way of government, the best way is not intervening in their civil wars and not trying to pick and choose their leaders, but to defending American interest and to try to prevent anybody from falling into the hands of ISIS. The main thing we have to do is to not fund ISIS or their allies or deliver weapons to their side of the war. For the last several years, the United States, Saudi Arabia, and Qatar have been pouring arms into that civil war, but they've been giving arms to the allies of ISIS. I've said that was a mistake and foolhardy from the beginning, and I think it's turning out to be true that by giving these arms, ISIS simply snatched them up. ISIS now has $1 billion worth of U.S. Humvees. They have our tanks. They have $1 billion worth of U.S. cash. If you want to find something really insulting, ISIS pays their soldiers with our money that they confiscated. So we have to have a better foreign policy, one that defends America, protects American interests, but doesn't always think that toppling secular dictators over there makes things better. I think it's made things worse.
One of the tweets just a moment ago taken on board the bus, and we can see you in the backdrop, but your wife Kelly is in this photograph. Your longtime communications aide Sergio Gore from Josiah hanging with the Paul family on the C-SPAN bus. And my question, what's this experience like been for your wife Kelly? We've seen your son at the Puritan restaurant in New Hampshire. I know he's with you today in Des Moines, Iowa as well.
Yeah, it's exciting to have my family with me. I've got brothers and sisters, nieces and nephews coming. My dad's going to appear with me Sunday night. We're going to be at the University of Iowa. So we've got a lot of exciting things, and politics is kind of a family affair in the Paul household. So we're looking forward to it. Several of the kids, nieces and nephews will speak in caucuses for me. Kelly will speak in a caucus in Des Moines for me. So yeah, we make it a big family affair and try to have a good time doing it.
A few more minutes with your time before you get ready for tonight's debate. Let's go to Scott in Elmhurst, Illinois. Go ahead, Scott.
Hi, Senator Paul. I'm a graduate from Drake University several years ago and presently an MD just like yourself. I'm also a fiscal conservative, and I'm wondering how you have a plan to help bring down our national deficit, spend it or reduce the deficit rather than just creating a point of zero deficit.
You know, we don't have a great connection. If we could repeat that question for me, and this may have to be the last question because I think we have to move on to get ready for the debate.
Understand.
Can you repeat the question for me, please?
The question was, how do you bring down the national debt?
The question I have is, how are you going to bring down our national debt?
Thank you, Scott.
Okay, how do you bring down the national debt? The way I look at it is the first thing you have to do is quit adding to the debt. So the annual deficit is what we add to the debt. And over the last 8 years of President Obama, he's added $10 trillion to the debt. Really what you have to have is a compromise between both sides. Right now we have the reverse compromise. On the right, they want more military spending. On the left, the Democrats want more domestic spending. They compromise and everybody gets more spending and you get stuck with the bill. So if we want to actually stop adding to the debt, what you have to do is just make a rule. It says you can't spend what doesn't come in. We bring in about $3 trillion in revenue. We should just make a rule that says you can only spend what comes in. That's a balanced budget amendment. The American people are for it. But unfortunately, you can't get enough people in Congress to actually vote for it. But that's what we need, because Congress hasn't been very good at balancing their books. We have to balance the annual budget before you could actually begin to even tackle the national debt. If you want to make the national debt smaller, as you hold the line on the debt, you could begin paying back some of it if you're running surpluses. But really what would also happen is if you hold the line and you don't add to the debt, as the economy grows, the debt will become a smaller percentage of our overall GDP, and I think that would be good overall. In the recent years, we've gone the opposite way, where our overall debt, $19 trillion, is actually approaching 100% of our GDP and may even exceed it now, and that's a real problem. So the first thing you have to do is quit adding to the debt, and the way I would do is cut spending. I'd eliminate several departments of government. I would send back many powers from the federal government to the states and to the people respectively, and I would be one who would veto bills. I'd veto bills. If you don't send me a budget that doesn't balance, I veto it. If you don't send me spending bills that lead to a balanced budget, I veto those. We haven't had a president who stands up for fiscal responsibility in my lifetime. I would be the first one, and absolutely without question I would do it, because I wouldn't be running for office if I wasn't absolutely certain that I would veto budgets that didn't balance. And thanks for having me, and I'd love to do it again sometime.
Sure, and I just want to ask you if you feel that your message and these substantive issues have received the attention that they merit in light of all the attention that Donald Trump has been getting in this campaign.
Well, you know, I think we get a decent amount of airtime. I think Donald Trump gets about as much as all the candidates multiplied by 25. So yeah, there has been a problem, and I think the media kind of succumbed to a celebrity fad, and I think it hasn't been good for the campaign because it's made it harder for other candidates to compete on an equal footing. I do think eventually the American people will wake up and discover that Donald Trump's not a conservative. I mean, he's nearly 70 years old, and he has never voted even in a Republican primary before for president. So I think there's a lot of arguments to be said that he's not a conservative. He believes in using eminent domain to take private property from people. He's been for a single-payer system. He's been for higher taxes, bailing out the banks, single-payer healthcare system, you name it. So I think there's a lot of evidence that he's not a conservative, but the race has been somewhat skewed by the coverage. I think we could do a better job, but nobody asked me. I don't get to make the decisions on that. I just get to do the best I can, putting my message out there, and we'll see what the voters decide.
And we're grateful with your time today. Senator Paul, we'll let you get ready for tonight's debate. Thank you very much for being with us. Thanks for stopping by the bus. What do you think of the bus?
All right, thank you. Had a great time. Thanks.
Senator Rand Paul on the Campaign 2016 C-SPAN bus, which is in Des Moines, Iowa at Drake University. And if you're on the Drake campus or in the greater Des Moines area, the bus is going to stay there for a couple more hours because another event happening with Donald Trump. 9 o'clock Eastern time, we'll have live coverage. Let's show you the scene on the bus and outside the